welcome to Live Interactive English. I am Nina.
I'm Matt.
Are you okay?
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little bit tired. I was up all night reading this great book.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a good way to spend your night, I suppose.
Yeah, it was. It was a really great book, so I just couldn't go to sleep. Have you read any great books recently?
Well, actually, I've been rereading Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a real classic story.
It is, and I just love how like they're from different families and they're not allowed to be together, but they are so in love with each other that they just want to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
Because it reminds me of my parents, because initially them being together wasn't really supported, but they fight it against all odds, and here I am now.
Oh, wow. Well, that's
Yes.
great. I mean, you're lucky that worked out for you, because otherwise I don't think you would be here today.
Exactly, so I'm happy.
So that actually brings us to an interesting coincidence, is that today we are reading a story about a similar theme, about some couples, a couple that's in love, but they have some obstacles in their way, and they have to find a way to try to be together.
All right.
So we're going to find out more about that when we get into our story today called Pyramus and Thisbe.
Okay.
A long time ago in ancient Babylon, when mulberries were still white, there lived a handsome young man named Pyramus and a beautiful young woman named Thisbe. They grew up as neighbors and friends, but as they got older, they fell in love and wanted to get married. Fate, however, seemed to be working against them. Their families had become enemies, and Pyramus and Thisbe were not allowed to even speak to each other, much less get married. The only communication they had was through subtle looks whenever they saw each other outside. One day, the lovers discovered a crack in the thick wall that separated their houses. Although Pyramus cursed the wall for keeping them apart, they were at least free to whisper words of love to one another through the crack.
Welcome back. Today we are looking at a story called Pyramus and Thisbe. Now this is an interesting story that takes place a long time ago in a city called Babylon.
Ooh.
So Babylon was a city that existed, it was more than 2,000 years ago. It was the biggest city in the world, so it had the most people of any city in the world. And it was located in what is now called Iraq, the country Iraq. Okay, so let's find out what happens in this interesting story.
All right, so starting with the story. A long time ago in ancient Babylon, when mulberries were still white, there lived a handsome young man named Pyramus and a beautiful young woman named Thisbe. They grew up as neighbors and friends, but as they got older, they fell in love and wanted to get married. Okay, so they grew up together. They were just friends as children, right? And then they got older.
It's interesting. They said mulberries were still white at that time. So as we know, mulberries are a red berry.
Yeah.
But I guess at this time they only had white mulberries.
Interesting. Okay.
So the story continues. Fate, however, seemed to be working against them. That means that just sort of fate, meaning just all the things in their environment, everything around them is like working against them, stopping them from being together, I guess.
Yeah, so fate, another similar word would be destiny, right? Something that is meant to happen, but I guess maybe they weren't meant to be together. Let's find out.
Their families had become enemies, and Pyramus and Thisbe were not allowed to even speak to each other, much less get married.
Ah, kind of just like Romeo and Juliet,
Yeah, this is like that, the fighting families.
Yeah, okay. So the only communication they had was through subtle looks whenever they saw each other outside. So subtle means not obvious, right? So they cannot get caught. So they would give each other looks like,
maybe like a
I
wink
love you.
Okay, so that was their subtle communication. So communication is the way that information is given or received. So in many cases, speaking is our most common form of communication. We're speaking, We can also use the communication form of writing. So in this case, their only form of communication is through these subtle looks. So they're giving some information by giving a signal with their look, maybe a smile, maybe a wink, some kind of communication.
Yeah.
So for example, to be a leader, you need to have good communication skills.
Yes, indeed.
The story continues. One day, the lovers discovered a crack in the thick wall that separated their houses. Although Pyramus cursed the wall for keeping them apart, they were at least free to whisper words of love to one another through the crack.
Oh, that is so cute. So there is a crack, right? What's a crack? It's a very narrow space between parts of something. For example, when I drop my phone, right, I will get a crack on the screen. So an example sentence would be, my cell phone screen has a large crack near the camera.
Near the camera, that's the worst spot because it's going to mess up your pictures.
Exactly. So in this case, they had a crack on the wall. So in this case, there's kind of like a hole between them, right? So they can speak to each other.
Right. So it said that Pyramus cursed the wall for keeping them apart.
What's
so
curse?
To curse something, to curse someone can mean to use some kind of magic to make something bad happen to them.
Yeah.
But in this case, I don't think he's using magic. It can also just mean to say something sort of very bad about something else. So for him to curse the wall, he's saying like, you're a terrible wall, or something like that. No, he does not like the wall. He's saying something bad about the wall because it's keeping them from being together.
Yeah, so you shouldn't curse. Usually people say do not curse.
To curse can also just mean to say a bad word. Like you drop something, you say, but I won't say it here because you shouldn't curse.
Yeah.
So an example sentence is, Josh cursed himself for not studying harder for the exam.
Okay, so he probably should have. He probably got a really bad score.
Right, so he's angry at himself, and I guess he should have studied harder.
Yeah.
And maybe he will next time. But next time, we're going to find out more about this story after we come back from the break.
Yes.
Because we're going to see what's going on with Pyramus and Thisbe.
All right, see you after the break. Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。这一次要读的故事是 Pyramus and Thisbe， 皮拉慕斯与席丝比。那这个故事啊，是发生在很久以前的古巴比伦。当时啊，桑葚还是白色的。那有一位英俊年轻的男子 Pyramus， 还有一位美丽的年轻女子Sisby， 他们是青梅竹马一起长大的邻居。那么长大之后坠入爱河，想要结婚，可是命运似乎在跟他们作对。他们的家人啊已经反目成仇，不准他们交谈，更不用说是结婚了。那他们两个唯一的沟通方式啊，就是每当在外面见到对方时，就用微妙的眼神来交流。好，我们先补充一下 mulberry。这个名词就可以表达桑葚或者是桑树。那么 subtle 这个形容词，它是形容微妙的、隐约的，或者是不容易察觉的。好，那么讲到命运的时候 ，Nina 老师则用到 destiny 这个字 ，D-E-S-T-I-N-Y，destiny 表示命运或者是天命。好，那么故事接着写到，有一天，这一对恋人发现，隔着这两家房子的墙壁上有一道裂缝。那虽然 Pyramus 就咒骂这道墙，害他们两个分开，可是至少呢，他们还能够透过这个裂缝来低声互诉情意。好，单字 communication 它表示交流、沟通。那么 crack 它是名词，可以表达裂缝啊、缝隙或是缺口。curse 在这边当动词，它表示诅咒、咒骂，那它也有施魔咒的意思。如果这个字是当名词用，它表示诅咒或是祸害。那这边两个重点，我们进入文法时间。好，我们来看第一个重点是 there lives 加上名词去表达有什么什么存在啊，或者是住着什么什么。句型中的 there 是虚主词。lives 是动词，真正的主词则是 lives 后方的名词。那这个句型我们除了用 live be 动词之外，你也可以把它换成其他表示存在的动词，像是 exist、remain、stand 等等。好，那我们来看两个例句。 Once upon a time, there lived a farmer named Jacob. 从前有一位农夫名叫 Jacob。再看的例句是 There remain several mysteries. 仍然有好几个谜团尚未解开。好，第二个重点是 much less 它是表达更不用提更别说那么接在否定句之后，用来加强前一句的这个否定陈述，它就跟 not to mention 意思跟用法类似。举例来说 She didn't want to look at him, much less talk to him. 她连看都不想看他，更不用说是跟他讲话了。接回课文中。
The days went by at an agonizingly slow pace, message by whispered message, and each night ended with a tender kiss given to the wall that stood between them. One morning, they decided that they could no longer endure being apart and came up with a plan. At night, they would run away and agreed to meet up at a king's tomb near a tall mulberry tree beside a cool stream.
Welcome back. We've learned that Pyramus and Thisbe grew up as neighbors, but were separated by their families who didn't allow them to communicate at all, so they could only communicate through subtle gestures, subtle looks. But one day they discovered a crack in the wall that allowed them to talk to each other, to communicate a little bit.
Yeah, that's good, right? So I wonder how this will progress. Let's find out. The days went by at an agonizingly slow pace, message by whispered message, and each night ended with a tender kiss given to the wall that stood between them. Aww, they couldn't even give each other kisses, so they kissed the wall.
Kiss through the wall.
Yeah. Okay.
That reminds me of a song where they said to kiss through the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Kiss through the phone because you can't actually kiss. So in this case, there's no phones, but they're kissing through the wall.
It's okay. So it went through a very slow pace, right? So a pace is the speed at which someone or something moves or with which something happens or changes. So in this case, it's the speed of the days, right?
The speed of it, yeah. Their days are going by so slowly they can't communicate much, only whispers.
Yeah, so they miss each other a lot. For example, Felix and Andy walked at a comfortable pace as they look in the sights of the festival. Okay.
So they also said that was an agonizingly slow pace. So agonizingly is an adverb meaning that it's painful. Like something causes in agony. Agony is a noun. So you're in agony, you have a lot of pain, and then something is going by agonizingly slow. It means it's painfully slow.
Aw, that's so sad. Okay.
So one morning, they decided that they could no longer endure being apart and came up with a plan.
Ooh, I wonder what it is. Okay.
At night, they would run away and agreed to meet up at a king's tomb near a tall mulberry tree beside a cool stream.
Okay, so they're planning to meet up and then run away, right? So they can be together.
Yes, and at a mulberry tree. And they mentioned at the beginning of the story that this takes place at a time when mulberries were still white, but of course now they're red. So I wonder what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so they decided to meet at a king's tomb. A tomb is usually a room or a place where you put a body of a dead person. So usually these are underground. A very famous example you might know of a tomb are the tombs in Egypt where they find lots of treasure, where you find mummies buried in the tombs. So an example sentence, the museum exhibition has many treasures from ancient Egyptian tombs.
Okay. That sounds kind of scary, huh?
Wow, I mean, you think there's going to be mummies in the museum?
No, I mean, they're going to meet up at a tomb at night, you know.
It's not
kind
a
of
very
creepy.
good place. So, yeah, so they are meeting at a tomb at night. It's kind of seems like it could be dangerous maybe. I don't know if their families find them. So what do you think might happen?
Well, I would like to think positively and that they actually meet up there and do run away and live happily ever after. Okay. I wonder.
Well, yeah, I think I agree. I think they meet up there, and then they date for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, probably they find out they're not really that good of a match, and then they break up. And then, maybe Pyramus, he was talking to her through the crack on the wall on one side of his house.
Yeah.
I think maybe he was talking to another girl through the crack on the other side of his house. And maybe he also had plans to meet up with her.
Oh.
So maybe, I don't think it's going to work out in the end.
So he might go with the other neighbor, is that right?
I think it's a possibility. I think, Pyramus, I think it said at the beginning he was a very handsome man.
Interesting.
So, he's, I don't know if it's going to work out.
Or he lets Thisbe go and then starts going out with the other neighbor, but he realizes she's not as beautiful as Thisbe. There's that.
Maybe.
All right. Let's find out next time.
All right. We'll see.
这对恋人没办法在一起，只能透过墙上的裂缝传递一则又一则轻声低语的讯息。这样的日子啊，以令人痛苦的缓慢步调过着。那每个晚上就只能亲着隔在彼此之间那道墙来结束，没有办法亲吻到对方。有一天，他们就再也无法忍受，决定晚上要私奔。他们约在这个清凉的溪流旁边有一棵高大桑树附近的国王陵墓来碰面。Nina 老师觉得晚上约在陵墓来碰面，感觉有点可怕哎。老师用到 creepy 这个字 ，creepy。那么 creepy 它是形容是令人毛骨悚然的。那么单字 pace 它表示步调、速度或是节奏。我们可以用 at、或是 and 加上形容词加上 pace 去表达以什么样的步调。再来 tomb， 它是指说，尤其是指那种重要人物的那种陵墓啊，或是墓种的那个种。好，那么老师有讲解的时候，他就有提到 mummy，mummy，mummy 就是木乃伊。那么补充单字 agonizingly。它表示令人痛苦地、折磨人的。我们补充它的相关词性 agony，agony，它可以用来表达是肉体或精神的极度痛苦，它是当名词。那我们可以用 in agony 去表达处于极度痛苦、煎熬的状态。再来文中用到 message。by whispered message 去表达一则又一则低语的讯息，它用到的结构是名词 by 名词，只是有在名词前面加个形容词。那我们就来学习这个用法，进入文法时间。好，我们来看这个重点名词 by 名词形成的副词片语，它带有逐怎么样地的那种意思。那常见的用法就有 step by step， 就是逐步地、按部就班地。Bit by bit 可以表达渐渐地 ，day by day 一天又一天地 ，one by one 一个接一个地等等。举例来说 ，They got to know each other day by day， 他们一天一天地逐渐认识彼此了。好，以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
A long time ago in ancient Babylon, when mulberries were still white, there lived a handsome young man named Pyramus and a beautiful young woman named Thisbe. They grew up as neighbors and friends, but as they got older, they fell in love and wanted to get married. Fate, however, seemed to be working against them. Their families had become enemies, and Pyramus and Thisbe were not allowed to even speak to each other, much less get married. The only communication they had was through subtle looks whenever they saw each other outside. One day, the lovers discovered a crack in the thick wall that separated their houses. Although Pyramus cursed the wall for keeping them apart, they were at least free to whisper words of love to one another through the crack. The days went by at an agonizingly slow pace, message by whispered message, and each night ended with a tender kiss given to the wall that stood between them. One morning, they decided that they could no longer endure being apart and came up with a plan. At night, they would run away and agreed to meet up at a king's tomb near a tall mulberry tree beside a cool stream.
Unlike other ordinary stores that just sell gold and silver accessories, Lunds Movis is the only boutique jewelry store selling accessories made of brass on Yishu Street. In fact, the owner and his family are quite passionate about brass. Lunds Movis started out by selling items online and in apparel shops. In July 2015, the workshop officially opened for business. The accessories are all made using brass as the base metal, and there's no electroplating in order to be eco-friendly. The designs have a vintage European look and a classy style. There are 3 design themes: zircon embedded in brass, brass and natural pearls, and brass paired with natural stones, bringing diversity and variety to the products. The latest Lunds Movis creation involves using Swarovski crystals, which appeals to younger people. The classic brass can be made more modern and fashionable by being incorporated into beautiful accessories. As the store is also a workshop, the price is usually only half of the department store price. You will save more money if you buy higher-priced products. It's worth mentioning that even if you don't buy anything from the shop, you can go to Lunds Movis for any problems concerning accessories, and the designer in the shop will try hard to make repairs for you.